In this lesson, we're going to graft trees in 3 of my favorite grafting methods: the cleft graft, the approach graft, and then the rarely discussed piggyback graft. Hi, my name is Charles Malky, biologist and plant expert with Ivory Organics, where we grow cool plants and author of Saving the World with the Home Garden. In chapter 8 of my book, How to Make Free Quality Plants, Seeds, Cuttings, Airlaying, and Grafting, I want to share one particular paragraph that talks about the value and the reason why you should all be attempting grafting in your home orchards. Grafting is another way to accomplish genetically identical plants. Nearly all fruits and trees in commercial orchards, as well as those sold in local nurseries, are grafted. Grafting empowers growers to grow varieties of fruits where they may not typically grow successfully. By grafting them on rootstocks of related plants that offer disease resistance, drought tolerance, root rot resistance, control tree size, among other factors. For example, a Granny Smith apple grown in California may be grafted onto a different rootstock than Granny Smith apples grown in New Jersey. Both Granny Smith apples on both coasts will produce identical tasting fruit, yields, and quality. However, the rootstock in New Jersey must be able to tolerate freezing winters and rocky soil, while the rootstock in California may be able to tolerate mild winters and clay soil. Rootstock also helps to control the overall size of the tree. Granny Smith apples can be grafted onto dwarf rootstock that can limit the maximum tree size of 3 to 5 feet, semi-dwarf tree size of 5 to 8 feet, or a standard tree size of 15 to 25 feet. Another value of grafting in your backyard orchard may be also to improve cross-pollination between your trees. It's generally understood that cross-pollination helps to increase fruit yields, improve fruit size, and also improves fruit flavor. Grafting can accomplish exactly that goal without having to plant and compromise additional space on your property by having plants within the related genus of species of that tree, all growing in the footprint of one tree. For example, we have a plum tree here on the property, which I'm going to share with you shortly, that have grafted onto it apricots, peaches, and plums. And today we're going to be grafting together a pluot on top of that as well, and I'm going to explain what a pluot is for those of you that haven't heard about it. Because peaches, plums, apricots, almonds, cherries, and so forth are all in the Prunus family, they can all cross-pollinate one another, accomplishing all of those benefits of cross-pollination. And on this one particular tree in my garden, we've currently got 4 varieties of Prunus successfully grafted trees, and today we're going to be accomplishing graft number 5. We've also accomplished, in the footprint of 1 fig, 10 flavors of figs growing on the same tree, from the green varieties to the black varieties to the brown varieties to even the striped tiger fig variety, and so forth. So 10 flavors of figs, 1 rootstock, 1 footprint of a tree, getting all of those benefits. Your citrus can benefit in the same way, your avocados can benefit in the same way, your mangoes can benefit in the same way, and so forth. So let's say I wanted some more Hass avocados or a Granny Smith apple, or to my left over here is a Meyer lemon, and to the right a Eureka lemon. If we basically took the seed out of the fruit, like so, and here's our avocado seed. If we cut the apple in half, and if you come in a little closer, being a little smaller, you can see the apple seeds. And if we cut into the Meyer lemon, and here are the Meyer lemon seeds. However, if I were to plant the Meyer lemon seed, or the Granny Smith apple seed, or that Hass avocado seed, none of those trees will be true to the fruit you planted. In fact, that Granny Smith apple can produce apples that are red. The Meyer lemon, which is known as being a sweet lemon, can produce very sour lemons. They can also end up being larger, almost grapefruit size, and any other variation in between. And some of you may be asking, how and why would that happen? And the answer to that is, the seed is simply the children of those parent plants. So the Hass avocado, when that fruit is made, is created by the pollen, which is the male, and then the ovary, which is the fruit and the female. together through cross-pollination or fertilization, similar as to what happens in people. That fertilization randomizes the genetics and brings in characteristics that are unique to the pollen and unique to that ovary, and together create the fruit. And again, that's what's happening with the Meyer lemon, as it may be cross-pollinating with lemons and oranges and grapefruits and limes and any other citrus in the area, and creating these seeds that will only produce fruit that are unknown until they actually get planted and are grown out over the course of several years. Maturity being anywhere from as little as maybe 6 years upwards to 10 plus years, until you get to see the characteristics of fruit yield, fruit quality, fruit size, and so forth. But when you plant a Hass avocado tree or a Meyer lemon tree or a Eureka lemon tree or a Granny Smith apple, those are proven for decades, if not now, some of them are approaching a century plus, proven varieties with consistent yields that are desired by people, and hence we're continuously propagating them predominantly by way of grafting, a technique I'm going to be teaching you guys today. So that when you're planting, if you are a farmer in orchard or fruit trees, and you want to make sure all of your fruit are genetically identical, producing the same size, the same flavor, the same quality, you're only going to be accomplishing it by way of grafting. To accomplish those consistent yields, grafting is the #1 predominant way of accomplishing it, aside from the other ways of creating genetically identical trees being by way of cuttings and air layering, which are significantly less used compared to the grafting methods and techniques that are going to be taught to you today. So let's get started. So this Ponderosa lemon tree, had it not been grafted and in fact was sitting on its own roots, would grow to an average height of somewhere between 20 to 35 plus feet. You can also graft citrus as well as a lot of other fruit trees on what's known as the standard root stock. And a standard root is going to be pushing growth that's going to help the plant accomplish standard height, which again is going to be somewhere between about 15 to 25 feet, possibly larger. But this Ponderosa has been grafted about 4 to 5 years ago, as you can tell by the thickness of this tree trunk. And even after 4 to 5 years of growth, has only measured about 1 foot in height. It's teeny tiny, only pushing out inches of growth per year, but all of the fruit are going to be in a compact growth pattern in this area. Compared to this Ponderosa lemon, my Eureka lemon to the right is grafted onto a semi-dwarf rootstock. I'm 6 feet tall, and you can see that my reach is about 8, and this tree easily wants to push out about 10 feet of growth, and I can easily keep it in check. And you can see I've maintained a nice bushy, compact, growth pattern, because again, the plant only wants to grow an average of about 10 feet. I can easily keep it down to 6. I can allow it to continue growing to its maximum height of about 12 feet. Because of the vigor that can happen with a semi-dwarf, semi-dwarfs can easily push several feet of growth per year, as do standard size rootstock trees. For those growing in container, my preferred tree of choice is a semi-dwarf type tree, again because of the vigor, and can easily be contained and doesn't have the same vigor of a standard tree, which is the maximum vigor and the maximum height. And for those growing in a container and that don't want to be growing teeny tiny trees like this, I strongly encourage that you look for a semi-dwarf or a semi-standard tree, as they will express the vigor instead of putting a standard size tree into a container and trying to adapt it to container life. Some of you may also be wondering why some of the plants on your property aren't growing as large, and again, this might be the reason. They're grafted onto a dwarf rootstock or a semi-dwarf rootstock. Another benefit of grafting for you in the backyard orchard might be to graft, for example, your oversized apple tree or peach tree or even a citrus tree onto a semi-dwarf rootstock, where your fruit can always be within reach. And that may be of increasing importance to that backyard food grower that wants to have their fruit within easy picking reach. So this fruit tree in front of me is the Dapple Supreme Pluot. It is a cross between a plum, plu and the pluot, and an apricot. So an apricot and a plum together cross-pollinated naturally, not a GMO, but naturally cross-pollinated the pollen from a plum with the ovary of an apricot, and together made this delicious, one of the best tasting fruits, and of the pluots, one of the best tasting of the pluot, as there's now dozens of varieties of pluots being offered across the world. This particular Dapple Supreme variety of pluot is a cross between two amazing, best-selling Dave Wilson Nursery growers of this particular tree here in the Northern Hemisphere, and available to nurseries nationwide. And you can go to davewilsonnursery.com for more details on where to find a nursery closest to you. But the Dapple Supreme is a cross between the Dapple Dandy, which is one of their best-selling pluot varieties, and then the Flavor Supreme pluot. Together, the pollen from one and the ovary of the other created another seedling. On average, every year, the Zager Farms, which created this hybrid variety of the Prunus family, as we mentioned earlier, you can cross-pollinate between any of the flavors of fruit within the Prunus family, and that includes almonds, cherries, apricots, and peaches, and nectarines, and plums. All of these are related and will cross-pollinate and create seedlings, which are then planted. The Zager Farms, which invented this particular patented variety of pluot, plants an average of 50,000 fruit trees per year. Again, those seedlings, watches them grow over the course of 10 years, and from those varieties only selects an average of 1 to 2 and possibly 3 out of those 50,000 plantings that they do annually to come up with these amazing flavors that they're now sharing with me and all of you. So as you may have observed, this pluot is already going into bloom and shoot. It's already starting to bloom and push out the initial leaves. And I really wanted to graft this variety into another one of my Prunus fruit trees here on the property. And we are now in a race against time to accomplish this. As our daytime temperatures warm up and the soil is warming up, it's pushing out all of this new growth. So we're gonna have to reach up into the extremities of the tree where growth has not yet happened, and we're gonna get some of this dormant wood. If you take a look here, none of these buds have popped or even begun to swell yet. So our timing is great. When timing the grafting on your dormant fruit trees, such as those in the Prunus family, which include again your peaches, plums, apricots, nectarines, and so forth, as well as your apple trees, as well as your pomegranate trees, as well as your fig trees, if you're looking to graft those dormant plants using the cleft grafting method, which is one of the easiest ways of grafting when you can't get the trees growing together through the second grafting method I'm going to teach you is the approach graft, where the two will grow side by side into one another. But one of the more convenient ways of grafting is the cleft graft, which we're going to demonstrate now, where we're going to basically take some scion wood, which is the definition of the selected flavor of tree that we're going to be grafting upon the rootstock, that's going to control the disease resistance and the height control and all the other benefits that come with selecting the right rootstock for your grow zone. So here we are with the scion wood, and now let's go and graft this onto one of our other Prunus fruit trees that we have here on the property. So here we are now with my 4-in-1 Prunus fruit tree, and just in this zone over here is my red barren peach, which we grafted together last year. If you check out over here, you can see the buds are just about a day away from popping these beautiful red, double red flowers, and that is grafted in this zone onto the burgundy plum. Check out the burgundy plum white flowers right in this area. And then the burgundy plum we did by way of approach graft here onto another variety of plum rootstock, which is then grafted in this area onto a variety of peach, the Babcock peach, which is going to be blooming very light pink flowers in the next upcoming couple of weeks. And then over here is our apricot tree. So the 4-in-1 currently has apricots, peaches, the red barren peach, and the burgundy plum. And today we're going to be adding the Dapple Supreme pluot onto the burgundy plum, which I could be adding to the red barren peach as well as my apricot. And I'm strategically now going to be looking for the ideal place to be grafting this on. A helpful tip I want to share with you before I prepare this scion wood to be grafted on using the cleft grafting technique is that you graft in a place that the branch is going to have a chance to optimally develop and produce significant amount of fruit. One of the leading mistakes I see with gardeners attempting to graft is that they graft towards the extremities of the plant, where the plant is only pushing out a few inches of growth instead of pushing out feet of growth. As you can see over here within the tree, we grafted low, and we continuously select branches and keep those vigorous branches in check to give the more newer grafts within the tree an opportunity to develop into significant branches of their own. If they're grafted out into an extremity of the plant, then it's only going to more likely than not end up pushing out inches and not become a significant part of the overall tree structure. So try to find a low branch, and we're going to be selecting a place momentarily within this tree structure where this pluot is going to have a chance to thrive and enjoy many years and hopefully decades of success producing significant qualities of fruit off of this, what's going to soon become our 5-in-1 Prunus fruit tree. Let's get started. When preparing for this grafting surgery, it's important to keep your tools clean, whether it be your pruners or your grafting knives, or as I've used for many times is also just a razor blade. Make sure you keep your ends sterilized, as you wouldn't want to be performing surgery between people without making sure that the tools are sterile and clean between operations. And so we're simply going to be using in this situation Lysol, which kills about 99.99% of viruses and bacteria, or you could also be using rubbing alcohol. You can also use a bleach solution, but make sure it dries off of your tools before you continue to the next step. So here we are with our scion wood. We're now going to reduce the length to about 4 inches. And now we're going to prepare the tip like so. We're going to turn that over to expose the cambium layers on both sides. And if you take a look here, you can see in the center is the wood, the supporting wood of the tree. The outside, just like your skin, the epidermis is also dead. This is the bark. But just below the bark is that green layer, that cambium layer, which transports the vessels as you would find in your body, those veins and those arteries that are pumping blood away and towards your heart. The cambium layer, that green layer, which is just a couple cells thick, is got the xylem and phloem. The phloem is moving fluids from the top of the plant, those sugars, down towards the roots where they're stored, and the roots are transporting through the xylem, the minerals and waters going back up the plant. So right there is the cambium layer, and you're going to want to make sure that that cambium layer is in contact with the cambium layers of the rootstock. So this here is the scion, now going to make entry into the rootstock. I'm also going to be adding a tip like so, and the wedge that's longer is going to be on the outside, and the wedge that's shorter is going to be on the inside of the grafted union. Let's go now and prepare the rootstock. Follow me. So now we're going to be grafting on the Dapple Supreme pluot onto the Burgundy Plum, and I found a nice, good strategic location within the heart of the plant. As you can see, I'm 6 feet tall. My plant is about 4.5 feet so far, but is growing off of a rootstock that'll allow this plant to grow anywhere from about 8 to 15 feet tall. Through pruning, I can always keep the fruit within reach of about 8 feet to 10 feet, but by grafting it low, I'm going to be able to train the branch to create multiple branches. And I'm training, as you can see, with these stakes around the tree, pulling the tree structure into a vase-like shape as you would with your roses, to help optimize the amount of light and air that's penetrating the plant, to help reduce the risk of disease, as well as help increase the flavor and size of the fruits that your plants will ultimately support. So let's get started now with grafting on. And what I've decided is to graft onto this vigorous branch within the tree. This here is the Burgundy Plum, which we grafted about 2 to 3 years ago right in this zone. So all of these branches you see are Burgundy Plum, and on top of the Burgundy Plum, we have 2 red barren branches, and I'm going to be grafting this part of the Burgundy Plum, transforming this Burgundy Plum into the Dapple Supreme pluot. And what we're going to do now is begin to prune some of these branches. And as you can see, these are weakling branches. If I were to graft onto this, it's going to end up getting crowded and lost into the shade and basically not perform ideally. So we're going to remove this branch, and I'm going to be grafting onto somewhere along this structure. Again, these are too small, and all of this new growth that's coming out, we're going to get out of the way, as I want to encourage all of the growth to grow into what I'm going to be grafting on. This would be a possibility, but again, the direction of the branch is not ideal. Again, as we're trying to create that vase-shaped structure, this is getting lost into the wall and growing towards the shade of the garden. We want it to grow away from the wall and into a fan-like fashion. So we're removing all of this new growth that's coming off, to clear the way and the idea on where we're going to end up grafting. I could graft way up here, which would bring the scion wood more comparable to the thickness of what's happening up here. But by bringing it down, again, it comes back to the philosophy of I have now more room and more height to train hopefully all of these buds that'll be pushing out new branches, and I can create a new structure in this open area within the tree. So I'm actually going to be pruning right here. And what I've done is I've pruned right below the bud, as each one of these buds makes it very difficult to cut into. And so I'm pruning here, and that gives me a good inch that I can cut into the branch to create the cleft graft. So with my grafting knives, I'm simply pushing down about an inch, inch and a half down the tree, as you can see. And now we're going to be inserting the scion wood. I'm now coming with my nylon fishing string and preparing to secure the scion wood. So I'm putting a few knots in place, and now we're going to slip the scion wood into the burgundy rootstock. Again, the longer edge is going to go in first. Another common mistake a lot of people will make is they'll put the scion wood in the middle, like so. And if you do that, the cambium layers, which are right under the bark of that burgundy plum rootstock, is not in contact with the cambium layers of the pluot, which is right there. And that's occurring on both sides. You got to make sure you maximize contact of that cambium layer between the scion and the rootstock, and to stick it down the middle is not going to accomplish that unless they're of exact diameter. But here we're dealing with a rootstock that is a significantly larger diameter than the scion wood. And so to accomplish contact, what we have to do is to scoot the scion wood over to the edge, aligning the bark like so. And when you align the bark, both of those cambium layers below the bark will be in contact with one another. And as you can take a look here on the back side, you'll see that there's no contact at all with the cambium layers, not between the scion wood and not with the rootstock below. The contact's only occurring on this side of the rootstock, and that is all that is necessary in order to accomplish success. And now we're going to secure it in place like so. Every few wraps, we're tightening the scion into position, wrapping a few more times, and then tightening, wrapping a few more times, and tightening. And we're done. How great is that? Burgundy plum rootstock is now going to create a callus tissue with the cambium layers of the Dapple Supreme pluot, and the two are going to become one. Those arteries and veins between the two plants, that xylem and phloem, are going to become one and strengthen and create a new branch that is about 3.5 feet off the ground that we're now going to train into a multi-branch structure to help support those pluots that'll be growing in this zone of the tree. We got the Babcock peach in the back. We got the apricots to one side, burgundy plums on the other side, and then the red baron peaches, nice and showy flowers in the front of the structure. Something I created in the early 90s to help accomplish significantly higher grafting success rates is what I like calling the paper towel grafting method, which is simply keeping the graft union moist with a paper towel, and you're basically dressing the wound and ensuring that moisture is there while the cambium tissues heal. And then you visit that wound just as a dressing on your own body. You wouldn't want to leave it there for months on end. But within about 2 to 3 weeks, change the dressing, because within about 6 to 8 weeks, you're going to accomplish and see that grafting success that's going to be there. So all I'm doing is simply wrapping the grafting wound with a paper towel, adding some water, and to help keep that moisture there for the next few weeks while the healing begins. And to help retain the moisture, we're simply going to wrap it with a plastic bag like so. The wrap doesn't have to be 100% airtight, but you're simply creating a seal to help keep moisture there as the wound heals And now I'm just gonna be securing it with some more nylon string. And that's it. Within the 6 to 8 week period of time, you should see grafting success, at which point you don't need to continuously put that moist paper towel bandage on those wounds, and you can now begin to prepare it for a long, healthy, grafted life, beginning with prepping that area with the Ivy Organics 3-in-1 Plant Guard product, which you can see on all of these other grafting wounds here within the tree. We've protected all of them with the Ivy Organic 3-in-1 Plant Guard. So you want to protect those areas from sunburn, but secondly, being that they're wounds between two different plants, is to prevent disease and boring insects from hiding within those exposed surfaces. This over here is a successfully grafted Red Baron peach using that cleft grafting method about a year ago. And as you can see, this side over here has since healed, but on the back side you can see, again, there's no contact. In the next growing season, the scion wood on top is going to expand and grow and fill in all of this area. But in the meantime, all of this exposed wood, which is again a hiding place for disease and pests, will all be filled in with the Ivy Organics 3-in-1 product in the upcoming days. Through grafting in the footprint of one tree, such as this fig tree, you're able to enjoy 10 flavors of figs, all on one rootstock. On this one particular fig tree, I have successfully grafted onto it the Tiger Panache fig, the Raspberry Latte fig, Santa Rita fig, the Cadota green fig, Brown Turkey fig, Bourg Josette Noir fig, the Celestial fig, the Green Isha, and Chicago Hardy, as well as Strawberry Vert. 10 flavors of fig, one tree. Primary benefit being you don't have to plant 10 fig trees on your property in order to enjoy 10 flavors. And obviously, there's many other reasons of grafting as we've discussed earlier. Well, let's continue on. So our first grafting technique was the cleft grafting technique, which we demonstrated using the Prunus family. And again, the ideal time for grafting dormant fruit trees is in that last chance of frost window. For us here in Los Angeles, that was the last week of January. So the ideal time for grafting would have been the first week or two of February, or as long as, again, that dormant wood is kept dormant. Some people collect cuttings in the middle of winter and store them in cool, dark places, and then graft them maybe sometime later on in spring. But that scion wood should remain dormant when using that cleft grafting method. However, when it comes to the approach grafting technique, you can do it virtually any time of year, as the two plants that are being grafted into one another are on their own root. The piggy graft, which we're going to demonstrate at the end, is another one that can be done at any time of the year, but has different benefits than what we're going to be accomplishing today together. So what we're going to be grafting on to the Lisbon lemon tree here behind me is this dwarf variety of key lime. So this here is a key lime tree. This one over here is the ponderosa lemon, again on a dwarf. This here is several years old and measures only 1 feet in height, again because it's on a dwarf rootstock. But check out this Lisbon lemon tree behind me, which is on a semi-dwarf rootstock, which had this ponderosa lemon or this key lime been grafted onto that rootstock within a few years. Check out how tall it can grow. I haven't pruned this in well over about 2 years now. My height is and my reach is about 8 feet. I'm 6 feet tall. This is easily about 10 feet tall, and a semi-dwarf citrus tree can easily grow to a range of somewhere between 8 feet on the low to a high of about 15 feet, and it's accomplishing just that. Had it been grafted onto a standard size rootstock, the minimum height would be closer to about 10 to 15 feet, and then want to continue growing to about 25 plus feet, which again was strategically selected for this particular grow area, as again, most of their fruit are within reach. This is an easy to prune down to about 8 feet of height, and I can easily pick the fruit. What I'm about to do is probably going to traumatize most of you, but I've done this several times over the last 5 years here on the Ivy Organics YouTube channel, and that is we're going to bring the tree down to a very low position and at which point we're gonna graft on the selected branches and then train them to regrow to this beautiful height of about 8 to 10 feet. So to begin, what we're gonna do is we're going to prune this Lisbon lemon down to about 2 feet off the ground. And with the initial branch structure starting just 18 inches off the ground, you're able to train the plant. And again, in that open vase, airy, light penetrating structure that'll maximize on the numbers of flowers and ultimately the amount of fruit yields you'll get to enjoy than if the plant was growing in more of a tree position with the initial branches being several feet off the ground. So what we're gonna do here today is bring the tree down and then begin the approach graft of the limes and ponderosa lemon onto this Lisbon lemon. And at the end of the day, getting to enjoy 3 flavors of citrus on 1 rootstock. I'm strategically trying to find out where on this tree trunk I'm gonna graft that ponderosa scion wood onto the rootstock of this Lisbon lemon variety. And so I just made my mark where I'm going to be able to graft just below that mark and still be at the right height of where this container plant is going to continue resting and growing and healing together with this tree over the next 6 to 8 weeks before we then separate the scion wood from this container ponderosa so that the ponderosa will be grown directly off of this Lisbon lemon. So I'm going to pull these containers away as I continue pruning this magnificent Lisbon lemon. So now with the Lisbon lemon pruned, there's a ton of vigor. This entire established rootstock and the entire root system is now supporting very few branches compared to what it once was. And we want to drive all of that energy into this new grafted ponderosa and next the key lime varieties, which are going to be coming off of this particular stem. We're going to be using the approach grafting technique, and I'm going to show you how we're going to do it, where again, the ponderosa lemon on its rootstock is going to be healing and grafting together over the next 6 to 8 weeks with this Lisbon lemon variety. And then we're going to do the same thing with the limes. And strategically, what I'm also going to be doing is putting the ponderosa lemons with the giant, almost pound size lemons towards the back. We're putting the key limes, which are smaller, in the front. So we're also thinking in an artistic way how we want this overall tree structure to look and ultimately grow over the next year and over the next decades, so we can enjoy the presentation of this particular tree here in our backyard orchard. To begin, the first thing we're going to do, if you want to come around, is we're going to align and determine where the grafts are going to be taking place. And so here I'm resting the pot and I'm going to be grafting right into this zone right there. And so I'm going to be preparing to cut down the bark using my grafting knife. Let me push the tree out of the way, going straight down in this zone right here. And then we're going to open the bark on this side as well, just loosening it. And you can see how it's coming right off the cambium layers. And now we're going to prepare the scion wood. This branch is going to slip right into this position. But now we got to expose the cambium layers on this tree. So here we go. When cutting into the tree, you don't want to go past halfway into the diameter of this scion wood. Here we go. Cut that there. Now we're going to slip this in to the bark, but I'm going to get my nylon fishing string ready before I then secure it into this position. So I'm just getting the nylon string secured against the rootstock so that when we secure the scion wood, we can quickly tie it into the desired location. I'm also going to be shaving a little bit off the backside to expose some more cambium layers, being careful not to make it too thin so that hopefully it can capture the cambium layers on both sides as we insert it here, the Lisbon rootstock. You can see, and then we're going to push that in right there. And now we're going to secure it. Now we're going to tighten that in place. Once in a while, every 2 to 3 weeks, you might want to open it up and watch the healing callousness happening between the cambium layers, between the scion and the rootstock. And using fishing twine is one of the easiest of all methods of being able to sneak a peek without having to take the bandage and the secure ties off. So we've just grafted the dwarf Mexican, also known as the key lime, onto the Lisbon lemon, serving as a rootstock, as you can see here with the white flowers. Behind it, the ponderosa with the purple buds, and we grafted the ponderosa in the back, the key limes here in the front. And again, number one reason grafts fail is due to desiccation. And so what we're gonna do is using the paper towel grafting technique, which again is a kind of a cross between an air layer where you're damaging the area and trying to encourage roots, and also helping to hydrate that graft. So the paper towel method, which we're gonna allow it to keep those wounds moist for a few weeks, and then we're gonna replace the bandage every few weeks thereafter, which really it's only gonna be one time that we're gonna place this bandage, that this graft is really gonna just pop and shoot tremendous amount of growth due to the vigor of this rootstock, especially following the pruning that we just did. So we just dampened the paper towel, keeping those grafting wounds moist. And now we're simply gonna go with some plastic wrap. You can use a plastic bag. In this example, I'm using saran wrap, and it does not have to be 100% airtight, as whenever you go to water the tree, you can sprinkle a little bit of water near the top, and maybe some moisture will go back down into that paper towel zone. And we're gonna secure that in place with a little bit more of the nylon fishing twine. And that's it. Within 6 to 8 weeks, we're gonna see definite success, as these areas are gonna be pushing out significant amount of growth compared to the growth that's happening in its own container. The vascular tissues and the vigor that exists with a semi-dwarf rootstock is gonna go and empower these grafted unions, and they're gonna be pushing out several feet of growth in this early growing season, as we've started now in March, compared to had they been on their dwarf rootstock alone, would only be pushing out inches of growth per year. So we're gonna be expecting feet of growth, and we're gonna quickly resume and regain that amazing tree growth shape and size, except this time, instead of just having Lisbon lemons, which we're still gonna get to enjoy, as I've saved some of the Lisbon branches, but we're also gonna get to enjoy ponderosa lemons and limes and so much more in the years to come. So here we are now with a ponderosa lemon that's been piggyback grafted onto a eureka lemon. More specifically, the ponderosa lemon is sitting on a dwarf rootstock, whereas the eureka lemon is on a semi-dwarf rootstock. So here it is, the rootstock of the ponderosa lemon, and you can see it basically comes up, makes these two branches. You can see there's very little to no growth since we've grafted about 3 weeks ago, whereas the piggyback graft that we've done right under here that we're gonna unveil in just a second has pushed out all of this new growth, several inches of growth in just 3 short weeks. And you can see that we've pruned back this eureka lemon, again sitting on a semi-dwarf rootstock that was about 7 to 8 feet tall. We did this a few weeks ago, and I'm hoping to share this footage with you here on the screen right now. And we brought it back. It has since pushed out all of this new budding growth, which will create the future branches. But as this continues to heal, we're going to be bringing the eureka lemon branch back, and all these 2 rootstocks are going to support are going to be ponderosa lemon, and what was once sitting on a dwarf rootstock and will continue to sit on a dwarf rootstock will now be supported by a semi-dwarf rootstock, so that it can accomplish the height of the semi-dwarf tree. So this ponderosa lemon that would have had a future of only about 3, maybe maximum 6 feet on its original dwarf rootstock, similar to this ponderosa lemon tree, as you can see, has been on this rootstock for many, many years, but only measures about 1.5 to 2 feet tall. This one will now have the opportunity to grow a minimum of 6 to 7, upwards of 10 feet. And obviously with pruning can be controlled, but it'll be a lot more vigorous growing, a lot more fruitful and productive, as the size of the tree is going to be significantly larger than it otherwise would be on that dwarf rootstock. One of many reasons to piggyback your fruit trees is to take advantage of that rootstock without having to wait the years for the original plant to grow on its own. It piggybacks off of the established rootstock that's already there, and all of the benefits and strength of the already established rootstock of that Eureka lemon are now going exclusively, as we continue to prune back the rest of the Eureka plant, back to the sole and exclusive benefit of the ponderosa lemon. I'm hoping you come in a little closer and just check out again all of that growth. And you can see it's pushing out all of these new leaves. And in between all the leaves, there's a ton of fruiting buds as well. This plant is very happy and excited about being connected and united to this Eureka lemon. And now what we're gonna do is open up this wound that we've basically dressed over the graft. As we've said already, one of the leading reasons grafts fail is desiccation, or drying out of the union. And we've solved this problem many decades ago through what I like calling the paper towel grafting method. And it's pretty much, again, combining the concepts of air layering with grafting. And by keeping that joint union moist and hydrated during the healing process, you'll accomplish so much more success than if you just rely on using a tape or wax or tar-based products to trap that moisture, compared to just adding that moisture by applying that moisture with a damp paper towel. So now let's open up the dressing. So as you can see here, it's been a few weeks. You can see there's a little bit of mildew happening here. Sometimes it's been significantly worse. That's the reason it's important every about 3 to 4 weeks to change the dressing. But keep in mind that within 6 to 10 weeks, there's no longer to dress the wound. And at this point, you're going to want to protect the grafting wound using the Ivory Organics products. And so over here, you can see where we've simply cut into the Eureka lemon rootstock on both sides. And then we've also created a similar cut into the ponderosa lemon, and we slipped that wedge into the wound. And you can see all of that callus tissue. Check out all of that white cambium callus tissues that are happening between the Eureka lemon and then the ponderosa lemon on this side. What I'm simply gonna do next is rinse the area clean. As you can see, there's new growth happening below the wound, and I wanna make sure that all of the growth eventually is gonna go straight from the rootstock into the grafted union with no side growth below the grafted union. I'll allow branching to occur above, but not below. So here on this ponderosa lemon, I'm going to be just simply pinching off that extra growth that it is happening here, as well as over here, to encourage all of those resources from the root to be driven up into that grafted union. So again, we're 3 weeks into the healing process. We're gonna allow it about another 3 to 5 more weeks to continue. We're gonna rewrap the wound in paper towel. Add a little bit of water. And secure it with some plastic to retain that moisture. And now I'm securing the plastic onto the tree. We're just trying to help secure that moisture against the plant. We can also continuously add some water from the top. That'll help keep the bandage moist. And within about, again, 3 to 5 weeks, we're gonna take off the bandage, and this will be the last time the bandage will be on the plant. If you've enjoyed this gardening lesson brought to you by Ivory Organics, be sure to give us that thumbs up, and most importantly, share us with your gardening friends and family. If you haven't done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the push bell notification to stay informed of these lessons as soon as they become made available. As always, keep growing with Ivory Organics, and wishing you all happy gardening.